Music and animation go together like peanut butter and jam. What better way to heighten an audiovisual experience than with song and dance? As long as the last of the graphic arts has been around, people have worked long and hard to incorporate music and even musicians into their work to truly elevate their masterpieces. I've already reviewed the Beatles cartoon last year, and there are many other classic examples flowing through the pages of time. Josie and the Pussycats, Hi Hi Puffy Amiyumi, and New Kids on the Block, the series. New Kids on the Block had a cartoon, checkmate 98 Degrees. But in my opinion, none are as overlooked, underrated, and all-around masterful as Crazy Frog, the animated series. There's a lot I can say about this exciting, adventurous series and how it impacted the animation and music industries as we see them today, but I first want to focus on how brilliant of an idea this was. Crazy Frog was an iconic figure of early 21st century rebellion, taking beloved songs from the 20th and turning them into high-pitched electronic works of postmodernism. It's always daring to advertise such a figure to children, but they ate it up, and wanted more adventures to go on starring the Blip Beep and Amphibian. It's just a shame the rest of the general public didn't agree, and this animated series has descended into obscurity. But how did a bunch of people come to this idea in the first place? We need to go back to 1997 for this one, where Swedish high school student Daniel Marmadell imitated a Formula One racing car's startup engine, pitched it up to create the now iconic soundbite that still influences European culture and mainstream media to this day, and posted it online where it slowly gained traction, eventually being misconstrued as an insanity test. This changed in 2003 when fellow Swede, Erik Wernquist, created a character and animation to go along with it in the 3D animation software Lightwave. While described as the annoying thing, it was eventually picked up by the Jamba ringtone company and renamed to the lovable scamp we know and love today, Crazy Frog. Marketing was intense. Within a matter of years, albums, singles, music videos, merchandise, TV spots, and even video games flooded the zeitgeist. The TV spots in particular were critically acclaimed by the British. They couldn't get enough of them popping up on ITV every 2 minutes in spring 2005. You could watch Christopher Eccleston bring one of the nation's most beloved fictional heroes back to life, or Crazy Frog. The choice was obvious. But it wasn't enough. And 4Kids knew this. They bought the rights to a full-fledged animated series that July, and after seemingly endless hype and speculation, Crazy Frog Adventures, eventually renamed Crazy Frog the Animated Series, finally broadcast on 4Kids TV on April 1st, 2006. It would air 2 new half-hour episodes every day for its whole run, giving the public more than enough of what they wanted. Ratings for the first week were among the highest in the network's history, but they gradually dipped over time despite the critical acclaim and constant advertisements. Hardcore fans tend to blame the Viva Pinata series for coming along and stealing its thunder.
It's party time!
That isn't a joke. They actually made a Viva Pinata TV series. But it seems the general public just wasn't very interested in watching Crazy Frog's battles against evil after a while, which is a real shame considering the few remaining stragglers loved the series dearly. It was sadly cancelled a year after premiering on March 31st, 2007, due to low ratings and a scandal involving one of the animators stealing goldfish from a pet shop in Skåne, where the show was produced. There hasn't been much information on initial plans for Season 2, or much of a fan demand for new episodes or a reboot, and the community itself has scattered since the infamous Save Crazy Frog the Animated Series rally in Washington on May 2nd, 2007. And that's all a shame, because this show deserved to be remembered fondly for the good it brought to the world, the peace it created, and the bim bim it bonged.
What's going on?
In the far-out futuristic year of 2016, crazy people are wanted men. The government cracks down on anyone who possesses a free spirit, zest for life, or passion for Eurodance. One lone warrior leads a resistance against the man, Crazy Frog. later revealed to have the full name Crazy Froggenheimer, considered particularly crazy for his biker fashion sense and indecent exposure. This descendant of a former royalty will do anything to break free of the mold and allow the new generation to embrace their inner frog. It's really an inspiring story all about embracing one's identity and searching for meaning in one's life, always handled with care, nuance, and dedication to the Crazy Frog brand and all that it stands for. The Annoying Thing himself is a very compelling protagonist, always wanting to spread cheer and goodwill in a society that doesn't allow for it. It's a true Robin Hood tale, with a frog this time. People have expressed distaste for his particularly high vocal range, but if I had to defend it, it's a reminder of his Eurodance heritage, and Jason Griffith, who provided every single voice, is a magician for creating distinct voices and personalities for every single character. His best friend and partner in crime is Bob. You will occasionally hear Crazy Frog make mention to him in some of his songs, and he has his own distinct, polar opposite personality, cold, distant, committing crazy actions for war rather than peace. While not as active a member of the group, Ellie's predetermined driving skills come into play plenty of times, and result in one of the most action-packed scenes in the whole show. Despite her appearance, she's very wild and unpredictable, always has new dance moves on standby, and she's also part-time leader of The Children, a younger group of misfits who will copy Crazy Frog's every action, often to his annoyance. He and Ellie share a strange dynamic, but a fun one. She's better than Crazy Girl, Crazy Frog's love interest. She has her moments, but tends to drag them both down into romantic cliches. To their credit, they're not the worst cliches in the world, and there is some self-awareness here and there. The main villain on this show is the Man, a man with a hand that he uses to press buttons. As the series goes on, they make this weird running gag that he's apparently the son of Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget. They later make a whole episode dedicated to this gag, and it is simply brilliant. Really paints the Man in a different light. The Man's main weapons are an army of sub-drones, big red robots made to maintain order and keep Crazy Frog and the gang out of the city. Something us hardcore fans will notice upon our 4th or 5th rewatch is that all 110 of them have their own distinct personality. I guess it can be difficult telling who's who, since they all look the exact same, but I find that's part of the fun. Up next is the gangsters, Joe and Schmo. They fight against the system too, but aren't part of the group. They are nomads, anti-heroes if you will. Their main beef being that society imprinted that their fashion and lifestyle wouldn't be taken seriously after 2006. This was something the writers were on the ball with, and it's such a shame. Lastly, the true main villain of the piece, Pizza Pat. I love everything about this guy, from the way they slowly build him up to be the biggest threat in the Omniverse, his tragic backstory of getting an order wrong one time, and his diabolical catchphrase, "I will make you Margherita being born." Certain Italian groups have expressed distaste with how Pizza Pat was depicted, with the main source of contention not being the stereotypical attributes, but rather Pat perpetuating the rumor that Italians are reality warping gods. To be fair, 47 of the show's animators were Italian immigrants, and this was all playful fun, not an intentional diss against their country. Plus, I think this being their biggest complaint with the character goes to show how strong of a lineup this was. I'm sure you'll have your own favorites, so let me know in the comments. One of the great things about the writing in Crazy Frog the Animated Series is how seriously it takes itself. There's a lot of weight and pathos to every single line of dialogue. It's kind of beautiful. Pizza Pat's evil diatribe in episode 250, Pizza Pat and his black and white morality, is a key example that everyone points to. Before the flashback kicks in, you know everything about this character, just from all the language, verbal and visual. But this series is filled with great moments like that. And despite the TVY7 rating, it was never afraid to get into gutsy subject matter like caffeine addiction, clinical depression, and unhappy marriages. No one can forget Bob's struggles with caffeine once they've seen it. It sticks with you, it kinda haunts you, and it makes you think differently about the way our world handles it. Episode 548, Beam Me Up Coffee, is art, and it's a tragedy it wasn't nominated for a gold bag. I'm not just talking the surprising plot twists this brings to the forefront, I mean just the story, staging, and character growth within this story is a sight to behold. And in spite of all the darkness, and all the suffering and madness, there's a small glimmer of hope in these stories, and you're more than relieved when they get a little closer to a happy ending each day. A key example of the series' hidden charm is episode 419, Crazy Frog's Day Off, where he just drives around the bleak city and notices all the good things he and the other rebels have done for it over the course of the series up to that point. It's mostly a silent episode, but you know what they say, actions speak louder than words. I'm also a big fan of the musical numbers in every episode. Pretty much all of them are remixed, pitched up covers of 20th century pop tunes, but is that a bad thing? Given how popular music slowly changed across the 20th century, from jaunty jingles to hard digital hysteria, a satirical piss take at the modern music industry was long overdue, and Crazy Frog delivered crazy well. Some of my favorites are the renditions of My Way by Frank Sinatra, Boogie Wonderland by Earth, Wind and Fire, and The Safety Dance by Men Without Hats. Some of my least favorites were of Ring of Fire by Johnny Cash, the Mos Eisley Cantina music from Star Wars, and Invisible Touch by Genesis. Sorry Jason Griffith, but Pizza Pat doesn't have a singing voice. But about that animation, from what we've dug up, they had a modest budget and software at best, but were consistently able to make something neat out of it. It's not the best animation ever, even for the time, but it's still got style and expression. Look at Crazy Frog's array of emotions. That's the work of a loving character designer. The color palette for most of the show is a near constant mixture of brown and light blue, two complementary colors that express the opposing sides of good and evil in the Crazy Frog world. And Crazy Frog being blue, and bursting into this brown world all the time, is the color designer's way of presenting that he wants a blue, free world. Since there are no seasons in the traditional sense, it all aired within 1 year, and arcs and stories flow into one another with no clear start and end points, I won't bother with seasonal trends this time. I'll just jump straight into the best and worst. Live and Let Ding, spoiler alert, is the episode where Crazy Frog finally lets go of Bob. It's a touching story about loss and acceptance, and delves further into Bob's character than most other stories set when he was alive. Damn you, Coffee Empire! Crazy Frog joins the Navy is one of the weirder concepts for an episode, but it was early on, so I can cut that some slack. Who knew the Naval Reserve was so into Eurodance? I sure didn't. There's No Town Like Brotown was a crossover with Brotown that I wasn't expecting and hadn't even heard about, but I was more than happy with the final result. Turning Honky into a motorcycling gun nut was a bit of a betrayal, yes, but you know what? Ellie and Papello's chemistry is too good to ignore. They learn so much about each other and their worlds. Morningside for life. The Crazy Frog Christmas special is one for the Holiday Network lineups. Pure joy from start to finish. There's some hidden commentary here about Crazy Frog not wanting to be turned into a toy, mirroring the original fanbase's worries about the franchise getting too commercialized. While that bridge had been burned, I'm happy they could acknowledge their older fans and give them something to talk about. Real Problems is the episode where Crazy Frog, Crazy Girl, and Ellie all get transported to the real world. This was a bit of a budget crunch episode. They had to make a live-action animation hybrid episode because the animation budget was running out, but necessity breeds creativity, and what a creative romp this was. The phone's ringing was a spotlight outing for the gangsters, as they get magical future phones with every ringtone in the world. Then those ringtones come to life and take over the world. This was kind of a jab at all the competition Crazy Frog had created in the ringtone industry, and it's meta episodes like this that kept it so memorable. Wee Hours is about an early morning heist into the city, filled with tension, suspense, drama,